Hi there, I'm Jamie Taylor. Welcome to Your Health Matters, brought to you by Kingman Regional Medical Center, your community-owned hospital. Every week in this program, I have a different guest, and we talk about different programs, services, information that I think will be of value to you and your family. So stay tuned. We're going to be back right after these messages with a really exciting guest. Welcome back to Your Health Matters. My guest today is Dr. Alain Asher, who is the new cardiothoracic surgeon here at Kingman Regional Medical Center, right? Did I get that right?
Got it right.
Good. Welcome. We are so excited and so blessed to have you here. And I know it's been a bit of a challenge because you've been dealing with the whole Arizona Medical Board fiasco, if you would, for the last couple of months. So that you're
Hopefully
here.
it's getting settled.
Yes.
And, any day now, we were told.
That's wonderful news. So let's introduce you to our community because we want to share with them your background, where you've been, and how you came to Kingman. So you were born in Egypt. You shared with me before the show started, but then went to France.
Right.
And
my parents were French. I lived in Egypt till I was 11 years old.
Okay.
They went back to France and migrated to the United States.
Okay. And how long, when did you come here then?
Came here in the early 60s,
Okay.
so 63.
All right.
And went through junior high, high school, and college at New York University. And then went back to France for medical school. And I also trained in cardiology and critical care there.
In France?
In France, yes.
Very good. So how did you decide you wanted to be a heart doctor when you were young? And
Well, I wanted to be a musician.
Oh, you did?
And my parents
So do you still play?
made me, sure. But my parents thought that I should have a profession, and this was my second concession. But as soon as I started going to medical school, I was very interested in heart dynamics, blood flow, and that sort of thing. And I knew that if I had to do it, I'd have to be a heart surgeon.
Very good.
So I prepared for that by training in cardiology and in intensive care, and then went on to do a little bit of research in heart and circulation, and then started my surgical residency in New York.
Okay, so after school then you came back to the States, did your residency and all that, and then somehow you ended up in Ohio, because that was your
Well, I
most
was
recent.
in New York and New Jersey for about 17 years.
Oh, okay.
And some friends of mine needed some help starting a new program in Ohio. So that was my first introduction to the Midwest.
Midwest, yeah.
It's very different than what I was used to,
Yes.
but interesting.
And how long were you there?
I was there for 5 years,
Okay.
helping two programs get started. One get started, one just saved from stopping.
Okay.
And most recently, I found that I had some friends here who have been here for about 15 years who had not seen, and it's a bunch of physicians that work at KRMC that I had known through their training, and some of them actually as far back as medical school.
Wow.
Somehow they all ended up here, and someone got in touch with me and asked me to,
Awesome.
to look into restarting the heart surgery program here.
Wonderful, because that's the one piece, obviously, that we were missing was that surgeon. That's kind of the key,
Right.
key central cog of that wheel.
Well, it allows a lot of the cardiologists to do certain procedures that
Right.
they wouldn't be able to do normally, and it completes, the spectrum of care for the patients here.
Right, that whole, and we have that whole multidisciplinary team. I think that, and I know for yourself too, you've learned or you've worked with our pulmonologist group,
Yes.
and there's so much.
Yeah, two of them I've known since they were medical students.
So is that Matheny and Wynn?
Yeah,
Awesome. They're great guys too.
great people.
Yes, they've been on my program before too. They're good guys. And I think for Kingman, the thing that KRMC I know has strived for is to build that multidisciplinary team that takes care of the whole patient, the interventionalists, and there's a lot you're doing as well that it's not nearly as, what do I want to say, as invasive as it used to be, right?
Well, more and more, all of cardiac care is migrating towards a team approach and it's been predicted that 10 years from now, each member of the team, no matter where they came from, whether it's a cardiologist, a surgeon, a radiologist, a vascular surgeon, will all be able to have the same skills.
Oh, wow. So they could like step in for each other almost?
Correct.
Wow.
Because as things get more technical and less physically demanding, the technology allows different types of people with different types of training to do the same things. It also is done as a team approach anyway. One of the things we're starting here is what's called a heart team. A heart team is a team made up of all the different components: cardiac anesthesia, cardiologist, interventional cardiologist, non-interventional cardiologists, vascular surgeons, and cardiothoracic surgeons that get together and discuss, for the moment, almost half the patients that we do to make a group decision together.
Okay.
We will start with the very difficult cases, but then migrate to a group approach to every single patient that has a problem, and trying to figure out what the best person to start the process is, and then if they qualify for certain types of procedures that we'll be getting into in the future, like percutaneous valve replacements and other therapies that need to be done as a group. The group plans the procedure, and everyone from that group is in the actual procedure at the same time.
Part of the team and part of the decision making.
Okay. And this is why in the future, as more people are having these groups, the group becomes more and more homogeneous, and the borders between the specialties start to disappear, and you become a cardiovascular specialist who will be able to perform any part of the procedure. Wow. So we're learning, to be better imaging sort of people. Our echocardiograms, our TEs are now very familiar to us, and the cardiologists are learning to do things that we would have normally done, but through less invasive means. Our own operations are getting less and less invasive, is what you're leading to before, to try to do either the same operation through a small incision, whether it's a valve replacement or valve repair or coronary bypass, but also in a hybrid sort of approach where we would do part of the operation through a small incision, and the cardiologist can complete that with percutaneous minimally invasive.
Okay. Yeah. Well, then I would imagine that also then speeds up the patient's recovery time.
Yeah. Less invasive means a much quicker recovery.
Right.
Standard operations used to require 10 days, 2 weeks in the hospital in the past. Even then, they have progressed to getting the patient out, for the most part, between 4 and 6 days.
Wow.
Less invasive procedures. We've done some minimally invasive bypasses in the past where the patient will go home 2 days after their operation.
Amazing.
And because the approach doesn't require a sternotomy, but cutting the bone, they can go to work essentially immediately.
Really? Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Come a long ways. Because I personally have never had it done, but I've had friends or talked to people who've had it the old way, and literally crack the chest open is what they would call it, and they were down and out for a while. It was not only in the hospital,
but it's from the approach more than from the operation itself. Because specifically, cardiac operation makes the heart better immediately.
Okay.
But getting to it is what causes the debility.
Yeah. When I've seen folks coloring-wise where they've gone from being ashen, and they have, whether it's a stent, the bypass done, and they're all of a sudden they've got blood flow again, and amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. And we're amazed all the time and how the heart and the body can recover from things that we do.
We're pretty miraculous. I mean, our bodies are just...
Very good design.
Yeah, you did good. And I would think for yourself, too, it's got to be a miracle almost every day as you see those kind of things. And
most surgeons, despite what people think, are awed every day and have the same reaction as non-surgical people as to,
wow,
I can't believe we're doing this, and I can't believe that the body can recover from that. Yeah. And sometimes, even more humiliating factors, I can't believe that the patient is allowing me to do that, and it increases just the level of responsibility that we feel towards the patient.
Sure. Absolutely. So the steps that I know that you're here now in Kingman, which is wonderful, but it's not like you show up and then you start working on patients the next day. There's a process in place.
I've been working now for 3 months, being here every other week for a whole week. We had to hire a team, some of the team that existed before, and some new people. We had to train them all and put in all the protocols. And for the last week, we've been doing mock cases in the operating room. We're going to do that. We're going to do 2 cases a day for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And actually next week we take our mock patient to the ICU and get them through all sorts of scenarios so that the program is completely prime and ready to go for life.
So is this like a mannequin dummy kind of person, or kind of?
We started with nothing, then we went to mannequin, and the last few we're going to do will have real people masquerading as patients, but we won't do the full operation on them.
I was like, wow, who volunteered to be that? No,
some people do anything for attention. If there are any volunteers,
yeah,
please step forward.
So that whole process is obviously the point is to get all of those processes in place, and so everybody is comfortable and knows what they're going to be doing.
Yeah, and to have a fail-safe and backup system for any potential issue that might arise. Yeah.
And I would think that that will help our audience feel a little more at ease too. I mean, any surgery obviously is always frightening whenever you have to have surgery, whether it's, you know, a bunion or major heart. So knowing that you're going to be in the hands of a team of individuals who have...
And a team that hasn't just met, teams that have been working for several months together, and all have a part and all interact with the patient. Every member of the team, no matter what their role is, will meet the patient before the operation and check on them after the operation. We have team rounds that we will be doing several times a week, where even the pump technician who runs the heart lung machine will come up and see the patient.
That's great. And again, it's that personal interaction.
For sure.
And I think that's one of the things that being in a small community like Kingman, where you get to know your neighbors and your friends and you run into each other on a daily basis. And I know I've shared with staff all the time, it's one of the reasons it's so important that we provide the very best possible care, because you're going to run into that person at Safeway or at the movies or whatever.
And that happens everywhere. It happens more in smaller communities than in very large cities. And there are definitely advantages to the smaller team, the smaller hospital approach to certain things we are not going to be able to do here that we can do in a large institution, because it's a larger team and more of a commitment for equipment.
Well, I mean, because you have 1 or 2 teams, right? But there's only so many of you, so.
Right, but also just there are some, you know, highly technical procedures that just demand too much of a financial investment by the institution, and they can only do it with very large numbers. But there are major advantages to a small community where you stay in your own community, get exactly the same care and much more personalized attention. And that's the key. Doing an operation is not even 20% of the whole thing. Most of it is building a bond with the patient, getting them through this, and them feeling that they have a support at all time, and be familiar with all the members so that no one is a stranger.
Awesome.
And that's something that's easier to do in a small community, like you said.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that whole process, okay?
Great.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages.
The hospital has shut down whenever the surgeon went away. We're not going to do that anymore. We'll have a backup surgeon.
Welcome back to Your Health Matters. My guest today is Dr. Alain Asher, the newest cardiothoracic surgeon here at KRMC. Thank you again for being on the show.
My pleasure.
And we're so excited and blessed to have you in our community and starting this brand new heart program here at KRMC with this whole team. We were talking before the break of all the different groups or the different disciplines, if you would, that you're pulling together for this heart team. So let's go over all of those. Who all is part of that team?
Well, the heart team approach is it's not the team that does the operations. The heart team approach is an approach that's been advocated by most societies, whether they're cardiology or surgical societies, because technology is progressing so quickly and so many types of procedures are being done either robotically or percutaneously. Percutaneously is going through the skin, through a vein and artery without having to make a formal incision. That's from the non-surgical side. From the surgical side, the incisions are getting smaller and smaller, and the approaches are getting less and less invasive. And somehow, you know, they not only will meet in the middle in the future, but they interact with each other. So the heart team approach is, as we mentioned before, a group of all the different disciplines that intervene in that. Heart surgeons, cardiologists, radiologists, vascular surgeons, and cardiac anesthesiologists. And more and more decisions on therapy are going to be made by a group as opposed to an individual physician being referred to a physician for X, Y, and Z therapy.
So they're all going to be there together working.
As a matter of fact, reimbursement is different for hospitals that have a formal heart team.
Oh.
Because certain procedures, such as valves that are done through intra-arterially, so like a catheterization, can only be done if the hospital has a formal heart team that has shown a track record for a while. The heart surgery team, which would be the team that I would work most closely with, are people who participate in the operative care of patients, and that entails dozens of people. The intensive care unit and all the nursing staff, and the type of unit we have here is called a universal type unit, wherein the patient comes to a certain bed. That bed is where they go from there to the operating room, come back from the operating room to the same bed, same nursing team, etc. And the intensive care part of their room becomes tempered, you know, over the next few days, and becomes more like a regular room, and ultimately they leave from the same unit.
So they don't have to go like from the CVICU to ICU to PCU to med-surg kind of thing.
Correct. Which is a gigantic advantage for the patient. Everyone is familiar with them. They know their care team knows them. And nothing is lost in the transfer of the patient from one unit to another.
And the family knows where to find them.
Correct. Family has 24 hours a day of visitation, and there are even places for the families to stay with the patient if they want to.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Well, so that's the intensive care unit or the hospital unit. The operating room unit has multiple people. It has specialized cardiac anesthesiologists. The hospital here has two specifically trained cardiac anesthesiologists, which are absolutely amazing. I've known one of them, or his reputation, from the past, and the other one is just a superb technician. They not only put the patient to sleep, monitor all their hemodynamics, the blood pressure, cardiac flow, pulse, and that sort of thing, but they help us plan the operation to make the operation as least risky as possible. They also participate in the care of the patient after the operation. That's so anesthesia.
Putting them to sleep and waking them up.
Right. That is only a very, very small portion of their job. In the operating room also, we have a team of nurses and surgical assistants and surgical technicians, each of which has a role. The assistant surgeons, the scrub technicians pass all the instruments, but also keep stock order and make sure that everything is set up. The nursing staff takes care of a lot of the medical issues, the monitoring, the medications that are administered, etc. And the perfusion team, we have two perfusionists here who run the heart-lung machine. Not all the operations are done on the heart-lung machine. A lot of the bypasses we'll do are done on a beating heart without stopping the heart, which makes recovery much, much quicker. And but they would always be on standby in case the heart didn't tolerate being manipulated while it's still doing its job, because the heart still has to, throughout the procedure, ensure circulation to the body, to the brain, et cetera, et cetera. And on operations where the heart-lung machine is necessary, which is essentially all the valves and about half the bypass operations, the perfusionists run the heart-lung machine, which is a very complex sort of
it's like the heart working, right?
Right. The heart is stopped, the lungs don't work, so their machine has to step in and do all that.
Wow. And then be able to pass it back when its time is up.
Exactly. And that's kind of the critical time after we're done, because A, the operation has to work, because the heart has to be just as good as before, and B, we have to slowly let the heart-lung machine let go and the patient's own heart take over.
Just like
and that's done in cooperation with the cardiac surgeon, the anesthesiologist, and the perfusionist.
Wow. How long does that
And then there's a surgical team, the surgeon, which is only one part of the team, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that is, I mean, you're being very humble, and that's awesome, but we know that without you, the rest of that wasn't going to be happening.
Every member of the team is important.
Right.
It's really one of the things that we've done here, as opposed to the past, is make sure that everyone has a replacement. There'll be at least 2 of each type of member of the team.
Backup.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
And whereas in the past, the hospital has shut down whenever the surgeon went away, we're not going to do that anymore. We'll have a backup surgeon to ensure, and that has worked with the team already, so that everybody works together well.
Comfortable together. You know, I have to say that I think one of the most exciting things of having you and the team here for our community is the fact that they aren't going to have to get sent away to Phoenix and to Vegas for a lot of these procedures that they've had to do in the past. And that's not only good for the patient, but also for the family members, their friends. I mean, the expense alone of transporting, plus having to go back and forth to visit, all of that. And then the recovery time you're talking about is an amazing improvement over how it's been in the past.
Right. But part of the recovery is the support system the patient has, and the family has to be involved from the very beginning, and having to travel is a big burden on them, and also it's impossible for them to participate in the daily progress of the patient and in their post-operative therapy, etc. And being in town, helps tremendously. Every patient in the hospital, I always tell them, you have to have an advocate. You have to have some member of your family or friends who's there with you, because the patient's always nervous, doesn't ask all the questions that they'd like to ask, and having someone else who is a participant in their care ensures that some of the things that may be too embarrassing or too nervous to ask are asked.
Or they just forget.
They forget, I just went through an operation recently, and I must say, I just let it go by, but my family knew that I was supposed to be doing that and not that and this, that the surgeon spoke with them also. And doing this locally ensures that it is done.
Families involved. That's great. And I know the follow-up side, of course, for the advantage here at KRMC is we have a wonderful cardiac rehab program as well to help get them back into being active again, which
rehab is one of the most important parts after an operation like that. And as part of our multidisciplinary rounds, which will happen twice a week, the rehab people will see the patients 2 or 3 weeks after their operation. We'll see them in the hospital at least once, possibly twice during their hospitalization. And at least, they'll know each other, they'll participate, they'll describe their care, so that when they go to therapy, they're not going to be with strangers.
That's wonderful. And because I've often thought too, I've had Jen, on the show before, and it's scary. If you've had a heart condition, you're probably a little nervous about pushing yourself too hard, and yet at the same time, you have to get back into moving and working again. And so having that team that's there monitoring you and able to tell you, you can go harder, you're okay, or back down a little bit, they're involved in that whole process.
And when people come to the office or go to therapy, they meet other patients that have gone through the same.
Exactly.
And the patient-to-patient interaction is really important. There's a group being formed of volunteers that will visit the patients in the hospital that have all been, veterans of this type of thing. I find that extremely helpful, because it reassures them that
Someone else did, I can
someone
too.
did, I can do it. And there are questions that people ask someone else who's been through the same thing that they don't think of asking their care team.
Wonderful.
So
thank you again for being on the show. We are blessed to have you here in Kingman. Look forward to seeing you around town more. I hope you learned something new today. I know I did. Join me again next week when I'll have another great guest on our program.